From a step that disrespects your time to a dev decision that kills the replayability, this is why Richtofen side of Tranzit is the worst Easter egg. I'll also be rating it at the end. Probably the biggest factor that determines whether an Easter egg is fun is map design. If the map layout doesn't lend itself well to the steps we have to do, then it becomes a walking, running, or waiting simulator. And if you've ever played Transit, you know that the map and its transportation mechanics are infamous for how unfriendly they are to the player. This is the crux of the issues with this Easter egg. Let's start with the first step, turning the power on. On any other map, this is a straightforward task. But on Transit, you either subject yourself to a long train ride waiting for Ted to hurry his mechanical ass up all the way to the second to last stop, or you hope to the RNG gods that the teleporters take you to where you need to go in a shorter amount of time. And honestly, it could go either way. But it gets even worse, because now you go on the worst fetch quest in Zombies history. And it's without doubt, because not only did they decide to make the jet gun 4 parts, not only did they spread those parts out evenly throughout the entire map, but you can only carry one at a time, unless you're Shades. But I'm not sure anyone else has the finger dexterity that he has. 2 of those parts aren't that bad, which isn't saying much, but the gauge at the cabin and the wires at the power station are at least somewhat tolerable to run back and forth to and build them at the town. The handle at Noct and the engine in the tunnel, however, is like getting to the power. You pick your poison of either running for arduous amounts of time while shooting denizens over and over and over and over, or you roll the dice on the teleporters. And so, after spending all of that time building, however long it is, but it feels like an absolute eternity, you shoot the damn thing until it blows up. This actually feels like a middle finger from the game. You just wasted all of that time to blow it up. But hey, at least now you actually get to kill some zombies, heck yeah! This is the only step in the entire Easter egg that I like. Well, I shouldn't even say that I like. I tolerate this step. But then, one of the worst steps in COD Zombies history. Somehow, exploding zombies under the pylon made it so that it has too much power, so Richtofen now needs you to reduce it with EMPs. So now, you have to get those out of the box, and even this simple task, if you're unlucky, can turn miserable. I would know, I once spent 40 minutes doing this step because the atrocious map design makes chasing the box down more difficult than it should every time there's a teddy bear. And trust me, there will be teddy bears. But eventually, if you're lucky or if you just have the willpower, you will get them. How many times depends on how many players you have and how many players want to teleport with EMPs. But if you're a masochist and are doing this solo, well, good luck. I've personally put about 6 hours into trying to do it solo, but my goofy ass and the relentless RNG have prevented me from throwing 4 EMPs correctly.
Oh! What?
I have no more carrying capacity for ammunition.
Come on! Are you kidding me? Ah! Dude, literally everything was against me on that attempt.
But hey, you're built different, or you just have the luck of a lottery winner. You're seeing the pretty blue pylon. If you did it solo, you conquered the endless running in the fog, the RNG of getting the EMPs, and the really stupid RNG of the max ammo drop, plus the teleporter twice. And what does Richtofen give you as a reward for all of your suffering? Absolutely nothing. That's right, you go through all of that pain and get zilch for it. I guess unless you speedrun this and get a world record, in which case I think you need to seek help. No human being should put themselves through so much pain and agony. I just don't understand why Treyarch decided to do that. This was the first ever main quest in COD Zombies to not have anything as a reward. This is coming from the last map being Moon, where you got all of the perks. Everyone got all of the perks. I mean, maybe they had to cut it out because of the time constraints that the old 2-year cycle imposed. We already know that they cut out or covered out plenty of stuff already, so maybe this was part of it. So they didn't do anything new with the reward, but did they with any other parts of the main quest? Well, there's 2 distinct innovations, but they are both marred by their implementation. The first is the introduction of buildables to the Easter egg, the only one you need for this one being the jet gun, and well, we already talked about how much of a blast that is. Although it is worth saying that it paved the way for steps like building the staffs and the bows. The second is that they made 2 separate Easter eggs for this map. To date, it is one of only 3 maps to offer 2 different quests to the player, and Transit was the first. While it is cool, it isn't nearly as much as it could have been. For one, they both feel really short. Like, we're not doing much in either, they're both around 5 steps, and I think that's probably because of the dev cycle too. The other big reason is that, apart from the very first time you do one of them on your account, either side, you actually don't have a choice of which one you can do, because for some godforsaken reason, Treyarch made it so that once you do Richtofen or Maxis' side of the egg, then you can't do that same side until you do the other one. This is the reason I can't really talk about the other side of this Easter egg, because I currently have Maxis done and can only do that one again once I finish Richtofen's side. It would have been much more player friendly if you had the choice of doing either in any given match, but maybe the reason they didn't was because of the story. As the Victus crew, we're supposed to choose a side and power the pylon in order for either of them to gain more power over the Aether. So probably the biggest in-game reason that they didn't allow you to do the same Easter egg twice in a row is that it saved your progress. You can actually see the colors in the main menu, and they did that for the super Easter egg, so I guess there was a trade-off for that. Either way, having to pick a side in Transit is interesting because they're both ominous, and they're saying that their path is a path towards saving the world.
We must hurry, for Maxis is a busy little beaver. Unser dummy bird will kill you all! Trust me!
That's basically the only story you get throughout the Easter egg, but the radios have more interesting stuff. There's radios of other groups being divided by hearing both of their voices.
Mysterious voices. Several of our party began to hear the voices, and their competing instructions and incompatible demands drove a wedge down the center of the camp.
And there's one that explains why Stuhlinger's the only one that can hear Richtofen, which by the way really sucks as an in-game mechanic. If you're not him and you're doing Richtofen's Easter egg, you're kind of just following along and not hearing any of the quotes, and I really wish they did that differently as well. In the end, this egg, like all of Transit, is heavily bogged down by its ambition. It has a lot of great ideas, but has some really bizarre executions. The idea of a bigger map with POI split by long roads is fascinating, especially was at the time, but the way around is about as fun as stuffing your pinky toe. Buildables are interesting, but having to dedicate 10 or more minutes to building one thing is beyond tedious. And having 2 different paths to choose from in the main quest is unique, but most of the time you really only have one choice. So even though it innovated, the egg suffers from the map mechanics, and the story is much more interesting through the map radios. For Transit, I'd give the story a 3, the innovation a 4, and the gameplay a 1.5 for an overall Easter egg score of 2.8 out of 10.